Thank you for joining me again today. I have a wonderful man for you to guest, and if you are struggling with anything cognitive decline, Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, traumatic brain injury, or your loved ones are, then this is something that you need to tune into. Before we head over to the show with Dr. Marvin, please check out what we do at lisatamati.com. And please subscribe on our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to the show. Lisa Tamati here, and I have Dr. Marvin Berman with me. Wonderful to have you, Doctor. Fantastic to have you with me. Excited for this conversation.
Thanks, Lisa. It's great to be here. Hello, everybody.
So, Dr. Marvin is going to be sharing with us some incredible breakthroughs in neurocognitive and red light therapy, basically. But Dr. Berman, can you give us a bit of a background as to how you got here? Because you were a psychologist first and got into this field a little bit later. So maybe give us a little bit of background.
Sure thing. I started out in psychotherapy with a body-centered orientation. I trained in the tradition of a psychoanalyst called Wilhelm Reich, who some people are familiar with. He was an early contemporary of Freud and was running the psychoanalytic clinic in Vienna and then in Berlin. And he was the one who discovered that when people have an insight and kind of reconnect with the unconscious conflict that they were experiencing that was causing their symptoms, he found that there was an actual increase in the amount of electrical voltage passing across certain muscle groups. And so when he saw that there was an actual biophysical change that directly correlated with the psychological insight that people were achieving through psychotherapy, he understood that the resolution of psychological conflicts had to incorporate a body component that had to do with the releasing of chronic muscular tension. So I trained in that branch of the approach, and in the US, that approach was called bioenergetic analysis, and it was developed by Alexander Lowen and John Parakis back in the 60s, and well, actually 50s. But Dr. Lowen wrote a book called The Physical Dynamics of Character Structure, where he laid out how the mind and body connection really went together. So all of the contemporary mind-body integration, somatic psychotherapies are all basically leaning on that older tradition of psychodynamically oriented, body-centered psychotherapy. So that was where I came from. What happened is that while I was providing service to the clients that I was working with, one day a guy said, you know, I'm feeling much better, but sometimes things don't click. And he did this. And I said, what does that mean? What's this mean in English? He said, oh, well, you know, sometimes I have to read things a couple of times, and sometimes the letters move around on the page, and, you know, it's annoying. And I said, in an offhanded way, I said, what, you got hit in the head? And he looked at me and said, you mean like a car accident? No, I never had a car accident. So then I had to sit back and go, wait a minute, that's not what I asked you. Did you ever get hit in the head? Oh, Johnny, you know, hit me with a baseball bat. I fell down the basement steps when I was 3. I hit a brick wall with my bicycle when I was 12, and I went, oh my God, you're not neurotic. You're brain injured.
Amen.
Like you really got hurt. Like you really got hurt. So that's when I realized that there's a different level of analysis and intervention that was needed. So that's when I discovered biofeedback and what's called now neurofeedback. And from that, I saw, as my mom and my grandmother started developing memory issues, I started looking into neurology's data on dementia. And what I found was many studies showing that as people progress in dementia, the electrical activity in their brain follows a very predictable pattern. Wow. The slower brain wave amplitudes increase, and the faster brainwave amplitudes decrease. So then I went, okay, so then now that you know that, what do you do? Nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. And he just kept doing the same studies over and over. And I was like, what the heck? Oh, right. There's no pill.
You can't tighten the, yeah, there's no pill that will
There's
fix
no
that.
pill. So then it was like, okay. So then I started looking at biofeedback and going, wait a minute. There's a whole like 30 or 40 years worth of literature showing that people with seizure disorders like epilepsy were able to learn how to control their symptoms and eliminate seizures doing brainwave biofeedback.
Wow.
And what were they doing? They were training down the slow waves and they were training up the mid-range brainwaves called sensory motor rhythm, or 14 hertz.
Wow.
And the better people got at that, the less seizures they had.
Wow.
So I went, well, wait a minute. Why wouldn't that work with dementia? So that's when we did a study and we showed that people who learned how to do that, who could learn how to decrease the slow and increase the faster waves, they did in fact change the slope of their memory problems from that to that. So they got better.
Yep.
We didn't cure Alzheimer's. You know what I mean? It's not
Yep.
it's not the cure.
But
It's
you
not the cure for the
slowed it.
underlying.
Yeah,
Right. We
the
changed the
underlying
slope.
pathology. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, that's great, but now what? And in the middle of that study, one of the husbands of one of the people that I was working with doing biofeedback sent me an article from the Daily Mail of all things, right? And he was a hardcore agricultural biochemist. Just show me the data. Don't give me any garbage. I don't want to hear it. Just show me the data. It's all about the science, right? He's sending me an article from the Daily Mail.
Yeah.
Anyway, I realized once I got to the article that it wasn't really an article in the Daily Mail. It was an article about a paper published in the British Journal of Neuroscience. Oh, okay, fine. So then I read the journal article, and it was, UK researchers reverse dementia using infrared light. It was an animal study.
That Dr. Paul Chazot.
Chazot.
Yeah.
It was Chazot, Anisor, and Dr. Gordon Dougal. So I went and read all the papers. I read the references, and I went back to the guy and I said, the science is solid. I'm finding it hard to believe, but the science and the people who are doing this are serious people. So it's no joke. It's not a joke. I said, do you want me to go get you one for your wife? And he, being the sort of person he was, said, well, see if they'll come here. Which means he had a lot of zeros after his name.
Right.
So I called up Dr. Dougal and said, hey, you don't know me, but what would it take to get your gizmo to come
here,
and put it on this lady? 6 weeks later, we were in Villanova, Pennsylvania, putting the helmet on this lady. 2.5 weeks of twice a day, 6 minutes later, my research assistant comes into the office. She does the morning treatment and I was doing the afternoon because they lived about 15 minutes from my office. She comes into the office in tears. Oh, what's the matter? Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. She got into such an argument with her husband. An argument? Oh God, they were yelling at each other, and what happened? Oh, she was telling him, where do you get off making plans to go see our son in Oregon without making me aware, and I have other things that I need to do. And I'm like, wait. Did all those words come out of her mouth at once? And she's like, oh yeah, they were yelling back and forth. I couldn't believe it. All of a sudden the phone rings. Hello? It's the husband. Oh my God, I can't believe it. She was so pissed. I got my wife back. Flick.
Love it. I got my wife back. She's grumpy again. Be careful what you wish for.
But I mean,
fabulous.
Yeah. But
fabulous.
She was diagnosed with primary progressive aphasia.
Wow.
When I
Not
started working
talking.
with her, she wasn't talking.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Amazing.
And it was like, oh, right. The light provided the missing level of energy, the
Exactly.
resource
Yep.
that the biofeedback was only able to marginally have an effect on because there wasn't enough energy in the system.
Yes. Yeah. Which makes sense.
I was like, oh, it's not one or the other, it's
It's
both.
both. Yep. Yeah.
So that was it. That was
That
the
was your start. And now what are we 15 something
we
years later or something?
yeah, so that was 2008.
Yep. So we're 16, 17 years.
So
Wow.
so this was not the device that we used, but this is the version, the model after the model that we used.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you can see it's got a lot of diodes,
So for
and it has
people,
diodes that go in the front, go in your eyes.
it's a very
They go in front of
sexy
your eyes.
looking helmet.
Oh yeah,
So
really sexy.
people on the podcast,
I
you have
tell
to go watch
people,
the
yeah,
video.
I tell people it's Darth Vader meets Doctor Who.
That's a good one. Hey, but hey, whatever works, like fashion's second, not first. And you've now got
So
fancier helmets and stuff. Let me just dig down on a couple of those
sure,
things,
sure,
because I've heard you talk about the three-legged stool, and this is basically what you're getting to now, is that you sort of started off in this neurofeedback, which for people like
right,
listening, so this is where you can control. And I've heard you say the analogy that people can actually, well, not analogy, example, that people can actually start to control their temperature when they focus on it. So if you use a thermometer,
right,
you can actually start controlling your body's temperature. And we know
right,
from, say, doing breath work and things that we can control our biology. I do it every morning when I'm doing breath work and things. So to a certain
exactly,
degree, we're not completely on that involuntary, and we can actually have it. So that's the neurofeedback. And there is things called EEGs, which we'll get into, which is that part of being able to understand what brain waves are going on where and where the deficits may
right,
lie. And then you've
yeah,
made this leap, and this is quite fascinating for you to have made and connected all these dots, made this leap over into the red light therapy. Near infrared light therapy is actually a way to actually manipulate that. So using the EEG with the red light therapy. And then the
right,
third leg of the stool, which you talk about as well, is the functional medicine side, which is,
mhm,
doing your testing. Have you got Lyme disease? Have you got mold? Have you got some toxicity happening? And that needs to go in conjunction with this whole piece. And
right,
I love this approach. I mean, Marvin, a little bit my backstory with my mum,
sure,
and
sure,
my listeners know it ad nauseum. But she and I have done everything known to man to save her life, and bringing her back from a brain that was massively impacted after aneurysm and stroke with hardly any higher
sure,
function to having a driver's license in 2.5 years and full, mobility, and wrote a book about that. And I had Dr. Lou Lim's devices at that time,
hmm
the near
hmm
infrared, the stuff that was available at that point. Also did hyperbaric oxygen therapy. I'm sitting in my clinic here at the moment with a hyperbaric chamber. It was a big part of that. And that's, again, blood flow, stem cell production, reduction in inflammation, all of these important
killing cancer cells.
killing cancer cells, because she got that later on as well, cancer. And I've seen the power of this. And what makes me passionate about speaking to you today is that there are
Hmm
millions and millions and millions of people with Alzheimer's, traumatic brain injury, Parkinson's
Parkinson's,
disease,
right, right.
all of these
I
neurodegenerative, and they think there's
yeah,
nothing they can do except take a drug on occasion, which have been
right,
a disaster. If we look into the Alzheimer's research and the trying to get rid of the amyloid beta plaques, that's billions of dollars being spent in the wrong direction, basically. So yeah, I'll let
right.
you come to word with comments on all of that.
Well, it's just that, we we're in a time where, medicine has been taken over by the surgeons and the drug companies, and that happened here in the States back in the early 1900s. And here in Philadelphia, I mean, there were two homeopathic hospitals that were the main hospitals in Philadelphia in the turn of the century. Homeopathy was the main form of medicine during the entire Civil War.
Wow.
So, I mean, that whole thing changed when the surgeons and the pharmaceutical companies teamed up to lobby against homeopathy and take over the whole medical profession.
Yep.
So that really changed a lot of things. So the biological mechanisms were always addressed by changing the chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in the brain, people were trying to change neuronal activity by changing the chemistry, the neurotransmitters themselves. However, every neuron is an electrochemical system, right? Because there's electricity that goes down the neuron and causes the release of the neurotransmitters that get picked up by the receptors, and then that starts another transmission, another electrical impulse. So it's an electrochemical system that every neuron really represents. Well, that means that if you change the electricity, you change the chemistry.
Exactly.
If you change the chemistry, you change the electricity. But the chemistry was the part that had the business model that allowed people to think in terms. And so there we are. But let's understand that the pharmaceutical industry is made up of very, very smart people. And they understand that principle. And so companies like GSK and others have put billions of dollars into electroceutical research. I mean, they're taking this all very seriously. So it's not a battle. That's really a misunderstanding. It's just that, like the insurance companies, you have to reach a certain level of efficacy with a certain number of people before an insurance company is going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
And it's not 100 or 50 or 200, it's tens of thousands of people. Because in Philadelphia, Philadelphia's Blue Cross has 18 million people under contract.
Wow.
You can't go to talk to them about, oh, I got efficacy with 100 people.
With 100 people.
It doesn't work. So we have to raise the level of evidence, and that's what Quiet Mind Foundation is really about doing, is getting clinicians and other people to start using these tools and collecting the data and publishing on it so that we can get aggregated numbers of subjects using these technologies. Then you can go to the Congress, then you can go to the APA, then you can go to the drug companies, and you can go to the government, to Health and Human Services, and say, hey, look, maybe
Hundreds
if
of
you
thousands.
and if you did neurofeedback and photobiomodulation with people with ALS or Alzheimer's, maybe you could slow the rate of development of symptoms by 1%, right? If you,
you've got to be
amount of
conservative
and the amount of money,
the
amount of money, it's like 1%. If you slow the rate of people developing dementia, Alzheimer's, by 1% a year, that's worth $10 billion.
Holy crap! Really? That's a lot.
Yeah. So for every percent you can slow the onset, it's billions and billions and billions. It's a lot of money.
Yeah. And so you think they will eventually listen to this? I mean, it's a snowball.
They will. What we say here in the neighborhood is money talks and BS walks.
I like it. And